Joe Gow and Kerryn Fields are artists both from Aotearoa, New Zealand, who now live in Melbourne. Separately, they have acclaimed solo careers and both have received Music Victoria Awards for solo albums, amongst other accolades. Last year, they released their first music together, the single Your Heart of Gold. Since then, they've released 2 more singles and they now have an album, I Remember You, and they are taking it on tour in Australia and New Zealand. And I have quite a few questions to ask them about the album. Hello, Kerryn, and hello, Matt.
Kia ora, Sophie.
Kia ora, how are you? And well, what a brilliant piece of work this album is. I have listened to it many times because I wanted to, not because I had to, as preparation. And I think each time I believe I have a handle on a song, I then find it has something else to offer, which I think is a testament to the richness of the writing and of the recording, actually. So I'd like to go through track by track after I've asked you some general questions about it, because I think it really merits that kind of attention. And the first things I wanted to ask about were themes on the album. So the ones I identified were loss and love, land and sea. And the one song that had all of it was Black Sand. But I'm wondering if you had themes in mind as you wrote.
Oh, I think we write with those narratives pretty naturally as solo artists anyway. You know, love and loss, the connection to country and elements is definitely something I work with, as you know. But we brought this record home to New Zealand, which I think really influenced more of those land and sea elements that you just mentioned. We did that on purpose, for sure. Right. Your Heart of Gold, you know, I know a place where the sun shines like a diamond, and you know, and Black Sand, and yeah, I think we brought that out of each other a bit more on this record too.
Yeah, I think we always want to set the scene in regards to songwriting, that visceral element, and the scene and where we wrote a lot of this record, and the heart of this record was where we're from. So obviously being in Aotearoa, that there is a lot of, you know, it's an island, so there's a lot of sea and the land. And I felt that that is what we wanted to put across in the songs in regards to where we were and where the heart of the record is.
When you were choosing songs for the album, did you do it with sort of an overarching framework in mind? So you were writing very much to fit that, or are there songs that were discarded and didn't make it?
No, these 10 songs are the 10 songs. There's no 11th song.
No,
it's just, this is the story, and there's no right or wrong way of creating a record. But interestingly enough, and I haven't really thought about that, but no, these are the 10 songs.
Every song we wrote, we were like, that's on the record. That'll do. And we got to 10. We were like, I love writing, and you would. Yeah, we were just like, oh no, it's done. It's done. The record's done. If we're going to write more, it's going to go on another record, because every one of these songs is going on that record.
They all fill the space, and they all flesh out the spectrum of emotions and what we're trying to say. So I think we covered it all in these 10 songs, I'd like to think. And when we'd finished with the 10 songs, we thought, yeah, that's what we wanted to say. And it's said.
And I mentioned before, sorry, what was that, Kerryn?
Have we got anything more to say? No, we've said it.
I'm sure you would have more to say, or perhaps on the same themes, but in a different way. And one would like to think there'll be more songs down the track. But I mentioned before we started recording that I wasn't sure if I'd say this in the interview, but I'm going to, because quite apart from those themes, I did identify like a pattern of heat and cold through the songs, which I found was really interesting. And it was not necessarily to do with even with the way you were singing it, but it was more just the feeling from it. So Your Heart of Gold, warm, obviously, gold, whirlwind, warmish, no trace, cooling, carry on, hot and cold, prairie song, cold. I thought even despite its up-temponess, love you like I can, very much hot. So we kind of go cold, 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 back up to hot. Black Sand, warm. It dawned on me, cooling. Dead flowers and stale wine, cold. And then Here I'll Be, I thought was cool with spikes of heat.
Oh,
isn't that fantastic?
That's a cool rundown. That's great. I'm looking at our songs now going like, yeah, oh wow, yep, great. That makes sense. Prairie song being cold though, that's a good one.
Which
Mm.
one? Sorry, Prairie Song. Yeah, it was just because anyway, we'll talk about them individually, but it does come in with this up-tempo feeling where it feels like it's going to be this jaunty sort of thing. And then I was like, oh no, I think there's something else going on here. But anyway, we'll find out. So the latest single, No Trace, was written on a park bench in St Kilda. Was that an atypical writing process, or are you often out in nature when you're writing?
Wow.
Let's think about where we wrote everything.
Well, No
Bit of
Trace.
both.
Yeah, No Trace in particular. Were we already going to meet and
We were
hang
going to
out?
hang out. We were
Yeah.
hanging out and
'Cause
yeah, we just wanted to hang out in the park and we had no intention of writing. I mean, we're constantly creative. So when you say no intention of writing, that's not entirely true. We're constantly messaging one another and, creatively inspired. But then when I showed up to the park bench expecting to hang out with my pal, yeah, we just launched right into it. And actually the song fell out. Like we were just kicking about on a sunny day in the park, hanging out with the guitar. And then the song just came to life and we were almost not really in control of it, even though we were, but it was more like, here comes the song, whether you want it or not.
Yeah. And obviously you go with that feeling when it happens, if you're in a spot where you can do it.
Yeah.
That day. Yeah, you do have such esteemed solo careers. And I remember when I found out you were working together initially, it's like that's going to be such an interesting project. But the stakes, I think, were also really high, given the high standard of music that you were making solo. So the music you made together would have to be at least as good as one of your solo albums. Did you ever feel like the project was a risk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it at the time, but we were just chatting about that a minute ago, and I looking back at it now, as you mentioned, coming off the back of solo records that were really well received. Probably if we had managers, they would have told us this was not a good idea, that we should continue on with the success we'd found. But it just seemed like a very natural progression, and it conformed to sort of our moral philosophies of just doing what feels right and being creative and being artistic and being true to ourselves as artists. So essentially, in regards to that, it was just very natural, and I didn't really consider the risk. I don't think
It also points to when you're talking about writing the songs, is like because you could have just written a whole lot of songs again. We have to find the best out of these songs, but it's almost like going into this project with the intention of making it great, which I think might have been there subconsciously or consciously. Those songs had to be on point when they were created, and the fantastic thing is they were, as they came out. It's not like you had to discard anything.
we wanted to tell our story, and we wanted to tell our story at the time, and that's a snapshot of what we were both going through as individuals and as a unit, as a cohesive unit together. Those songs encapsulate and capture how we felt and what we were dealing with. So I think to sit and write 100 songs, I don't know if we would have really improved on it that much, because each one of those was just that sort of pure emotion and what we wanted to express. So it hopefully, in future, looking back, I think if we listen to the record, it'll sound like that moment for us too.
Yeah.
And I mean, Kerryn, when I've spoken to you in the past, we've talked about the embodied experience of writing, and I know that you trust your feelings about things, that when a song's right, it's right. So I imagine there was a bit of that as well in this process. It's just, this is what feels right now. We're going to work on it till it's where we want it to be, and then I don't have any doubts about what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, look, I can't describe the chemistry that Matt and I have as songwriters. Even as I try and discuss it and unpack it now, it's very rare to say, I'm going to write a song about, and then go, there it is. It's very rare to, Matt would bring an idea melodically or, a riff. It's so rare to then just be like, and that's the song. Dead Flowers and Style One is a great example of that, where it was something that wasn't necessarily taking us time to write. Matt was like, you write the words and you do it. And I was like, I don't want to do it on my own. We write together. This is what we do. And, it was a hard time at that point of the record. And anyway, I was like, I'm coming over after like, I don't want to, you know, this doesn't work if we're not in the same room doing it. And then, you know, we sat down in front of one another, and 5 minutes later, it was like, there's the song. So
Right.
it's like that. I'm feeling this, let's write this, or there's an idea, let's do it. And as Matt said, there was nothing was discarded. So it's not something in my solo career I don't call it discarded. I just say they don't go to a record. They're all equally fabulous in my eyes, but you know, we didn't put anything aside and say,
No,
we won't put that on.
We went pretty much 10 for 10 in regards to any song that we thought was going to make the record. This is going to make the record. We worked on it. I think Kerryn mentioned Dead Flowers and Stale Wine, which was really the only song that initially caused us a little bit of trouble, but the reason is Kerryn put she felt that it should be more vocally collaborative, to the point where we actually tracked that song with just her vocal, and then in the mix stage, when she heard the mix, she said, "Oh no, you need to go and sing on this." And I said, "You sure?" And she said, "Yeah." And so I went back into the studio and retracked my vocal. That's now the chorus and the outro. And much to the dismay of my engineer and co-producer Andy, who actually disagreed with Kerryn at that point, and they said, "No, I don't think that's going to work. It's fine with just her." And I said, "Well, this is what she wants to do, and I think she may be right. So let's go back and do it." And that was probably the only one that took, as Kerryn said, took a little bit, but it was fundamentally probably because I was saying, "No, this is just your vocal," and she didn't feel that was the case, and she was right.
Yeah, it was a hard song because of its themes as well. We had to go into the characters of the end of a relationship. We had to go into those roles of the absolute, as you say, like haunting portrayal of the complexities of relationships ending. And so I was like, I'm not carrying this on my own. This is not my story. If you want to write a song about the end, then you better be in the room with me, because I'm not ending something on your behalf. Like, that's not how this process works. And so you're going to write it with me and you're going to sing it with me, and I will fight for that. And it wasn't so much that we disagree. It was just one of those songs where it was like, it's actually a really hard song. It's really sad. It's really heartbreaking. And no one really wants to sit with those feelings. And I think that was a part of it as well, that I was like, but we've got to go there. If we want to write a song about Dead Flowers and Stale Wine, we got to look at what the room looks like when we're singing it. And 5 minutes later, there it was.
Well, and the reason why I said it was cold is because of actually, Matt, your line, nothing down at this depth. I mean, what's implied in that? The idea that you're on the ocean floor and what it must be like to, it's literally chilling.
That's the line, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the line. It's interesting you say that's cold, but I wrote the initial spark to that in Gore at the Tussock Country Music Festival, and it was free, and our house was freezing, our accommodation was freezing, and Kerryn wasn't feeling very well due to that, and I remember writing it at that exact moment, actually.
It was a really, really hard time. Really hard time.
And again, that's captured in that song.
And we go there and we give out each other space to feel whatever it is we're feeling. And sometimes that's really difficult. And as a partner, as a co-writer, or, you know, you've got to be able to be brave enough to look at those things and go, that's a really hard thing. But I'm going to stay in the room while you feel it. And that's exactly what we did in that room. It was like, I'm really not well. And that's sort of where that song started from. So yeah, well, we went straight to the end.
Which is fine. And that's okay. But it's also just what you raised about being in the room, hard to be in the room. I think it is really hard to be a witness, perhaps especially when you care for someone greatly. And it's a reason why grief is not dealt with very well in our culture in particular, because people find it too hard to be a witness to it. And when you hear people say, "Oh, I don't want to call them, I don't want to upset them," it's like, but the not calling, the not witnessing to see how someone is a huge part of why they find it so difficult. So I think it's more rare to be a witness and to bear witness to someone else's experiences than it is to run away.
Do you know what the name of the song was before it was Dead Flowers and Stale Wine?
Bear witness.
The Witness.
All right, there you go.
You're very good
Well,
at this. You're very good at this,
good.
Sophie.
Yeah, because it was, yeah, wow. I need to take a fucking moment. That's cooked. That's very, you win.
I have been known to be oogly boogly about stuff, but since we
I don't even remember that until you
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that. I was like,
yeah, well done.
because we actually said that in conversation. I was like, it's so hard to witness someone you
Mm.
love go through the,
Mm.
like, to hit a point of like, yeah.
Well, yeah, because bound up in it is all the stuff you want them to be for you, right? If someone you love is going through something and you're used to them being strong for you or just being present for you and they can't do it because of what they're going through, that's a selfish motivation. Oh, but I really want you to be that person for me now. And you
Yeah.
can't be. And it happens, I think it only happens in very close relationships, actually.
Yeah, well, we definitely forged that day, you know. Well, we had many moments, but that was definitely a moment of like life can get really tough, and you can either leave someone in their toughest hour or you can show up for them. And you know, for us, you know, we showed up with music, which is what we do really, and we need, that's our answer to anything in life. What do you want for dinner? A song.
Has been.
Yeah. So that was that. And so, yeah, again, like trying to take that energy of that day or that moment where it started and then, you know, complete the songwriting. I was like, for me, it was like going, the point of this is for you to be in the room and I'm in the room with you too. So it can't be a song about a witness if you're not there for it. I'm not going to go off and write the song on my own. So it was quite painful, but it's one of my favorites on the record now listening to it. And I'm like, I can't believe we wrote that. That was, we went there.
Yeah.
And we used all those elements of like the ocean, and I'm the mermaid character in our duo and Matt's the eagle, and so I'm like, you know, that sailors to sirens, and that's the story of a mermaid is actually about drawing sailors to the ocean floor to their death, really. And so that was kind of the story in that too, and that I'm like, I'm going to take you down there and I'm going to show you what's down here, if you're brave enough, and if you're not, I'm taking you anyway.
I think what you said about showing up with music, and that is what you do for each other, but it's also what you do for your audience, right? So that this is part of the nature of art, is that you're presenting something to people that can help them or reassure them or even just entertain them. And there's certainly lots on the album that's entertaining. But we have started near the end of the album. So I'm going to keep going through the track by track, actually, because there was a nice segue there, Matt mentioning the Tussock Country Music Festival, because there is mention of Tussock in the last track, which is Here I'll Be. This is definitely about your homeland. I think there's also what I found interesting, and we will go back to the start of the album with Your Heart of Gold, but I felt a sense of distance in this song, whereas with Your Heart of Gold, it's about bringing you together. So I'm wondering if that was intentional. I'd also really love to know if you recorded the vocals in the same room at the same time.
So much to unpack.
Yeah, which question was?
You felt like it was distant, and Here I'll Be.
Well, yeah, like a sense of almost the two of you, whereas in Your Heart of Gold, because that's the first single, it's also the first track on the album, there's that sense of you being separate entities and coming together for something. And then on Here I'll Be, there's still that connection, but it felt almost like in a sense there was separation,
Yeah,
or
I
distance, not so much as distance.
I think that's to do with the transcendental nature of Here I'll Be. I think that's singing in regards to two entities that may not be physically in the same realm. And I think that's probably the distance that you're picking up on.
Yeah.
In that song, we're singing across time and across space. Whereas Your Heart of Gold is two people, it's friendship, it's the same moment, it's looking at the same sunset. It's a beautiful song that celebrates the moment and as I said, friendship. Whereas Here I'll Be is much more. I would say the song, in regards, as I mentioned earlier, is about transcending and the bonds that those unbreakable bonds, and also coming back to our home and spiritual home.
Yeah. So there is that, like, yeah, you really nailed it with that description. We wrote ourselves into the rivers and mountains and the sacred stone. We wrote ourselves into those places so we could find not only one another, but everyone we love. And we have lives of disconnect as troubadours, and we also lose people along the way. And where do you put that ache, and how do you translate that grief into your heart and soul and continue living when you've changed and grown and left and lost so much? So I always knew that my bones will live in the mountains of Otago. They will be there for the rest of my living days, and parts of Matt as well. So here I'll be. It quite literally speaks to, you know, the Southern Crest and the tussock and the fern reveals and the sacred stone where the river wails and the mountains call us back to dust. It's like, you can find me here and here and here and here, and I will never leave you. In a sudden storm, no harm will come, though it may be dark, I bear no pain. So even though you can look at things that are sad and hard, you know that you're not alone in them. So it's such a powerful song. I was saying to Matt as well this week, I was like, I almost feel a bit nervous when someone talks to me about that song, because it's so sacred. It's almost just a bit untouchable. Like I really, yeah, that song is the most pure form of spirit on that record that I could.
We wrote that in my mother's house.
I wrote that with my head laying in Maria's garden in the backyard. I woke up in that house and I sang it as you played it. There was no editing, there was no fixing. It was so
I just started playing the music. That's
pure.
right. Yeah.
I'd gotten up at 5 a.m. and written this poetry inspired by your mum and inspired by my own connection. And, you know, it was so beautiful. Yeah, it's untouchable for me, really. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone else sort of says about it. For me, it's the closest to spirit I could feel on that record. And I know that that's where you'll be and where I'll be for all of time. It's not just in that garden, but in every place that we sing about in that song. That's where we are. That's where we live now.
And you can definitely hear that in your vocal. Absolutely, particularly towards the end. And it is, I think there's a resonance in your vocal that is working on a cellular level, and I'll let people listen to the song to find out what that means. But the reason why I asked about whether you recorded the vocals together is because there's a way, Matt, that your vocals playing off Kerryn's that sounds like, yeah, that you were just in a space together and working off her, and not necessarily in a way you normally sing even. At least that's how I heard it.
That's
Well, I
true.
was I was in the control room watching her sing that take with my engineer Chris. I remember it vividly. Kerryn did a really amazing job on that vocal. It was very natural for her.
It was the last song, so it wasn't recorded on the same day. Your Heart of Gold was first, and Here I'll Be was last. The album was recorded in succession, and Here I'll Be was the only vocal that day. We came back,
Right,
and I said, because I'd said to you both as well, and you knew it. I was like, this is not me singing in a studio. I'm coming in with spirit. So let's ride. And it was very much that. And it was just understood from a very deep, connected way that this is what we were going to do. And I'm going in to sing this song. And then you followed in after I had done mine. And it was just like I mean,
it was only us three in the studio on that day.
Yeah, everyone else had gone.
It was dark, and she laid her vocal down, and it was fantastic. And then I went in and sang my vocal just after that, and just continued on from that energy. I think that is a vocal line that was predominantly created by Kerryn, that one. So you probably right in that I don't you may hear that I don't necessarily sing like that particular style or whatever you might be referencing. But there's a lot of that on this record where Kerryn will be singing melodies that I've constructed and vice versa. And I think that's a wonderful, really interesting way to hear different nuances in each of our vocal deliveries.
And Kerryn, when I last interviewed you, we spoke afterwards about you being a yoga practitioner, and so therefore I would imagine you're aware of kirtan, and that's actually part of what your vocal reminded me of was some incredibly impactful kirtan that I've heard over the years.
Yeah, I do that a little bit vocally, sometimes intentionally and sometimes not, but that connection to source, however it is that is translated for the individual, is not for me to let you know, but for me, I can tap into those places. And, you know, I don't think I'd ever sung Here I'll Be, you know, those, it's kind of like the unintentional sound that just comes from feeling. So it wasn't even vocal. It's towards the end of that song where you're just making noise, because that's what that feeling is, what you say, like it's just yeah, you're evoking something more than a vocal or a lyric. You're going to source and trying to translate what that feels like in a vocal delivery. That's Here I'll Be for me, for sure.
The songs definitely tie into the title of the record. The song ties into I Remember You. I think even if you possibly can't find the ties to each other, they all tie to the title. Every single one of them ties back into I Remember You, as does the song.
Have you performed that song live?
No. Oh, have we? When did we put?
Remember?
Did we? Where was that?
Really, really, we've never done it again.
Was that at the Little Theatre?
No, at the house concert. Do you remember?
Oh, right. I had a house concert.
They asked us for an encore and we were like, we're out of encores. No,
Oh,
really.
wow.
So to answer, it's no. Like, I'm saying yes because privately, like at a private house concert, we kind of, you know, let this out. But no, it hasn't been performed as you've heard it in that sense.
We were the other day and it was really magical. It was really magical. It was an interesting song because the band immediately, members of the band were saying stuff like, that song, it's really special, which I didn't really expect it to be that song that some of them picked out. But
yeah, me too. I thought that was just going to be, oh yeah, that's the last track.
Yeah.
That was kind of our own personal one. Like, you know, like it doesn't need to be anyone's favorite.
Yeah.
And again, Untouchable, I was like, don't tell me what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah. No, it was special.
Yeah, I almost felt like I'd had dreams of that song since I'd lived in the South Island, and I'd said I will live in these mountains. This is where I will be for all of my days. If you ever need to find me, and I said to my mum, if you ever need to find me, I'll be here. I'll be here in the mountains and the rivers. This is where I'll be.
I got a chance to hit the drums on that one, which is always a lot of fun.
And I played guitar while Matt was playing drums, and so even the way we delivered it face to face in the studio, I'm playing, and it was like this. Look out!
Yeah, different band for that one.
Right. Well, it certainly works. And as I said, we've started at the end of the album because I'm not going to arbitrarily impose a structure, because if that's where the conversation goes. But that does bring us back to track one, which is Your Heart of Gold, and which was the first single, and it was the first song recorded. Was it the first written?
No, Black Sand was the first written. Yeah, Your Heart of Gold was the second or third. Third, yeah, third. I wrote that. The start of that, we'd been chatting about, because I wrote Carry On and I asked you some stuff about it. So Carry On was actually the second, and then I was asking Karen some questions about the song, and she was very complimentary. And then I got off the phone to her and I started writing the start of Your Heart of Gold, and I sent her the idea, and she was heading to New Zealand, and I believe she got the idea when she touched down, and she worked on it from there.
So I hadn't been home in New Zealand since 2020 and COVID, and we'd been locked out. So that was my return, and I landed and switched on my phone, and here's the chorus to Your Heart of Gold. And I just remember walking through, there's this gorgeous, you know, when you come into Auckland, Tamaki Makaurau, like there's the gorgeous carving, the Maori carving, like, and I remember walking through there and listening to that and going like, I'm home, I'm home, and this is what I'm hearing. So that song is so special.
Very, very special.
Oh my God, there's so much going on in Your Heart of Gold. Like, wow, so special.
It's really evocative, but in such a beautifully delicate way, or an elegant way. And Matt, I've mentioned to you in the past the line "bare feet on warm pavement" in the bridge. I mean, there's just so much in that, you know.
Yeah, really
line.
happy with that bridge. That's one of my favorite bridges on the record. I feel like the bridge is the reveal
Yeah.
of what we are hinting at throughout the song, and then the bridge just says, "Look, this is childhood nostalgia bottled. That's what we have together. It's that feeling. It's that,
It's boysenberry ice
yeah,
cream at the milk bar.
yeah, bare feet on warm pavement. Yeah,
Yeah.
and at a time when I had all this hope in my heart, like that's what that song is. So I think it's a really important part of the record because it is very true to why we came together and forged this project.
And completely appropriate to have as track one. And from there we go into Whirlwind, and that you won a songwriting award for this song. And
Yeah.
so I wonder again if the stakes were quite high. Therefore, you've had this song that's already won an award, and then you go into the studio to record it.
Good point.
Did you have ideas about how to record it that actually changed once you're in the studio?
Well, I had sent you the demo that our listeners probably aren't aware of, because you I think you heard about the win and maybe asking about the song. I can't remember the details, but I know I sent you the demo, and you were very complimentary of it. So having won that award and I knew that the song had potential. I felt that when we went in the studio, I wanted to capture a lot of the essence of that demo and the energy, and I didn't want that to be diluted by having other instruments and taking away from the delivery. So I thought, how can we use these instruments to enhance the song rather than detract from the message? And I thought, well, the message is going to be delivered with authenticity and conviction because I lived that story, sadly. But I felt that the weight of that message, whilst still being poignant, could be offset so that someone could listen. And I wanted to infuse that. And I think the band, the fiddle, the drums, Kerryn's vocals, I think they helped to lift the song out of what could be to some the doldrums and a really intense, sad experience, so that you could perhaps listen to the music and tap your foot rather than just focus on the message, which isn't necessarily dark. The message is one of hope and inspiration and breaking the cycle of generational family violence. So it's an important message. So I didn't want to take away from that. But I think what we managed to achieve is a song that you can listen to for reasons other than just the message. You might want to hear the song and go, I really love that fiddle part. I really love how it comes in with the band and it gets moving. And, someone like Springsteen was always very good at that. He could sometimes hide a really strong or sad message with a really upbeat band. I think it's a nice juxtaposition sometimes, and that's what we use on that song.
And there is a lyric in it that is change. I can feel it coming. And I do think, Kerryn, your vocal on this recording now does add some energy of change to it. And I've seen you both perform this song live at least twice, maybe even more than that. And so it's a different way of singing it than you have been performing it live. But I wonder if you'll now perform it live or have been performing it live as you've recorded it.
Yeah, I think you might have heard it in the early stages where I was still I think for me, because it was such a big song for Matt to uncover for himself, I didn't want to get in the way or sing over it. And we've got a very genuine respect for one another and the power of the song. So don't throw yourself all across a song just because you want to be heard. It was very delicate, and I wanted to find the right way to support that message. And also, it's a story I know well and have lived myself. And as let's say, as the woman in this song, I needed to figure out a way to really stand in the power of this. It felt a little overwhelming. So yes, I do sing it like that, like you hear it on the record, maybe even more powerfully or presently. But it took me a little while to wait for my space to step into that song, and then also to embody the character and the story in a way that felt really genuine, and understanding that women have predominantly been, in terms of family violence, it's very delicate. And also the children and women, and we both play those roles, the child and the woman in that song. And so I think it gets more powerful every time we play it. My mom heard it on Radio New Zealand when we played it, and she very seldom chimes in with anything to sort of say or feedback. And I remember, I almost want to bring it up because it was like almost in capitals. She just said, never not sing that song at full force.
Right.
Like, she said, never not sing that song at full force. And so to feel my mum reach through the airwaves and be like, sing that like your life depends on it, because many people's lives have depended on you singing that, both of us. So it felt very humbling to find that role.
I want to thank the New Zealand Country Music Honours as well for giving us that recognition for a song with what we believe is a powerful message, but they could have easily given that award to some foot tapping pickup truck country, but they didn't. They gave it to a message about generational family violence. So much respect to them for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really proud of it.
Yeah.
And we could speak about the genesis of that song and how it came together and it was written, but it's here now and it exists in this form, and that's what's important. And we hope that it finds the homes it needs to find.
I think so often with a piece of art like that, you'll never know the full extent of the impact it's had, right? There might be some people who tell you, and that will be a representative sample, because I often think and I've seen it with books as well, is that you never know how many people. So it now exists. It will exist in the world, and then one day you'll get a little bit of knowledge of how it's worked, I think.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, I think it's that the hallmark of both of your songwriting is the, and I keep coming back to the word elegance of it, because I think that does apply. And I know elegant sounds like it should apply to clothing or furnishings or something, but I think it's the elegance of not overwriting, of not giving into the temptation of trying to say everything, of trusting the audience to bring their own interpretations to it. And so it is a compliment to the listener to say, I'm going to give you this information, and here's how I'm going to construct it, and it's going to be beautiful, and now the rest is with you.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I had the song, the initial concept for the music for years, and some of the ideas for lyrics, but I'm not sure at the time I had the courage to go there. So I thank Kerryn for the support and the encouragement to write about the topic. I don't think it would have happened otherwise.
Yeah, there was a lot more than just please write a song about that involved. It involved childhood friends, and it involved family homes. It involved a dinner, the night of that song coming to life. My nephew was born. There was a lot going on personally that allowed it, almost like that's what opened the portal. I was like, this is all the things we need to do to access this part of you that needs to tell the story. But we didn't know at that time either. It was just us being.
No, we didn't know.
We provide that for one another, whether you want to call it spiritually or creatively, but one of us holds the door open and the other one confidently steps through. And I think that's, again, circling back to Dead Flower Style Wine, again, one of us opened the door and the other one had to step through. Hey, Bertie. Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on, and I'm super proud.
One second.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think to come back to that song, uh, the lyrics are, I found something buried here when my only love laid to rest. And that is true to the song. Uh, my mother passed, and I felt that it was time to sing about it. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it is track 2, so people can find it there, and it leads
yeah.
into No Trace. And we have we talked about the writing of No Trace, but I would like to know who is responsible for the line "Full moon is high and heaven is closing." Which one of you did that?
Yeah, she did that.
Right.
Yeah, she did that.
Well, it's a goodie, Karen. It's a goodie.
It
Thank
is.
you.
Sets the scene really well.
Yeah. It's a devastating song. Devastating.
Mm. And an amazing video. Sorry, go on, Karen.
No, that's it. It's just a devastating song. Heartbreaking.
Yeah, we played it to one of
Yeah.
his friends, and he said, "Oh wow, that's horrifically sad."
Yeah. And I was like, that's before Dead Flowers. I was like, that takes No Trace. Like, No Trace is like running through the meadow compared to that one.
So yeah, they're both.
They're
Yeah.
both quite sad.
Mm.
Yeah, I
And it
think
was
I'll
so
bury the matches is also a pretty powerful line in that one.
yeah, it's a lot of it was like, yeah, I remember writing that line too. I'll bury the matches because
Strong metaphors.
I'd done something quite similar, trying to escape the feelings of the end and trying to bury things and trying to burn things and you know all those things you do and you're just so, and I quote, horrifically sad. Yeah. And then I don't know who wrote Let It Rain. No, I think I wrote Let It Rain, and
I
then
think
you said,
I wrote the chorus
and then
mainly
you said,
because
till there ain't no trace.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you asked the interesting story behind the chorus coming back to that line is that we were sitting together and we were students of each other's music, and Karen said to me, I really like in some of your songs when you go like the chorus hits and you hit this big chorus like in I'm Your Man and Go Ahead Celebrate, and like you go like hey and stuff. And I go, okay, yeah. She goes, what, let's do that for this one. What would you do on that? And I sang, well, I would sing this note, hey. And then I was like, but I can't say that because I've done that on my other two songs. So what if we're like hanging on? And we're like, oh, that's great. And she's like, that's cool. And so that's where the sort of chorus started. And then on that Let It Rain line, I remember saying to Karen, oh, I like if you hold that, like Let It Rain, and I'll change the chords underneath and you do that sort of high,
And I just hold
fast
it.
vibrato, type vibrato that you do on this song and this song, you know, like Atlantis. And she was like, oh, yeah, cool, cool. So it was a really, really fun way of writing where we could pinpoint aspects of each other's songwriting that we admired and try to put them in this song. So when I hear the song back, I hear those things.
Yeah, if I'm going to say it, I don't know if, this is how to describe it, but like, I think No Trace was us at one of the best points of us being madly in love with each other as songwriters in a way that was really just like obsessed with the cool things that you do and seeing if I could try it on. Like, can I put your boots on? Like, can I see if I can walk the same way? And we were like, yeah, sure, have my boots. Like, yeah, this is, yeah, cool. This is how I do that. So, and we just had no restriction and kind of going, yeah, cool. You want the key? Like, there you go, have it. And
so I think this was approximately song 4 for us. So we'd written Black Sand together collaboratively, but separately. And Carry On is obviously a very personal song for me. So and that inspired that conversation with Karen, then inspired Your Heart of Gold, which we again had to write collaboratively, but separately because she was overseas. So this was our first opportunity to sit down and flesh something out like in real time in front of each other. And that energy was well, it was very special, and the song came together really quickly.
yeah,
really quickly.
well, that's what happened with Love You Like I Can.
Yeah.
And also Dead Flowers. And, you know, we realized that when we're in the same room, like we could write Black Sand and that's great. But when we are sitting next to each other or in each other's energy, it is lightning fast. It's almost like it's a bit intoxicating in that way because that's how you want it to be done. I watched White Whirlwind.
Right, yeah,
You were
yeah,
sitting,
yeah.
well,
At my mother's house, you mean?
yeah, no,
And
in
then
Oamaru, yeah. And I sat there and was like throwing pieces of paper at you, and you were like,
yeah.
But I think, yeah, when you're talking about the energy of writing in the same space, as Kerryn, you were talking about one of you opening the door for the other and the other one walking confidently through it, but it's also like opening a channel. Obviously, energetically, there is something going on, and as you know, practicing yoga for a long time, this happens. We can't explain it. But it does require openness on the part of both of you, and a willingness to accept whatever arises. But I think it's also indicative of what this is, which is a truly equal partnership, which I don't think happens that often in this sort of situation as collaborators. Usually there's a push and pull there's push and pull, and it can be a negative push and pull. You're pushing and pulling each other into a beautiful place.
yeah, I don't know if we can describe that, but I do remember a conversation in the cafe in Dunedin where, I don't know if I can articulate this in an interview way, but we both were chatting about it, and I said there's certain depths to people, and you discover parts of people and you go, reveal the layers. And I said, with you, I just feel like we're going to go to the center. I was like, let's go to the source. I said, I want to touch the flame. It's like thinking about the earth's core. I want to perish in the flame of your center. That's where I'm willing to go. And I remember us both being like, yeah, that's what this is. Going to go absolutely to the core. And we haven't really even been there. Like, we've touched it, but I'm like, that was something you can't make up, even in friendship or even in songwriting. You can't go, I want to go in all your layers. It was like, I think this is happening, but I want it to happen. I want to go there, see what's there. Which is what made writing Dead Flowers quite sad, because we're like, you say there's nothing left at this depth, but that's not the end of the story, as we know. That's just part of the journey to the core of someone.
Now, you have made a fantastic video for this song, and I'm just mindful of the amount of time I've had you talking, because and at the time I'm talking to you, you do have other things to do. So I won't ask you about the video. I just will encourage everyone to go and see it. Kerryn, you directed it. So it's a wonderful piece of work. I've been very pleased to see the number of views going up exponentially as the days go on. So I will move on to Carry On. And Matt, the first thing I noticed about this song is the extraordinary use of your voice in a way I hadn't heard on any of your other songs. So I'm wondering about that decision and whether it just came out of you, or whether it was actually a decision before you started recording.
The song, I wanted to really sing the song, and I'm not playing any instrument on this song. It's just my voice, which is rare for me, and it's very rare. So using my voice as the sole instrument, I wanted to express everything through it. I also thought it would be an opportunity to go to places that I possibly hadn't done before vocally, whether sonically and certainly in regards to the lyrical sentiment. I hadn't experienced that before. So you're hearing someone who's facing that significant a loss for the first time. And I think that's take one. It is take one.
Yeah.
It is take one, actually. So that's take one. So that's take one. That's one take vocal. And it's a tough song to sing, to be honest. So like I sang it the other day in rehearsal, that wasn't easy. So we'll probably sing it here and there on this tour, and then that might be it. But it's like the record. It's very honest delivery. It's very honest vocal. There's a couple sort of voice breaks in there, and I feel the song expressed what I was trying to express, and hopefully people can find some comfort in that.
Yeah, it's very touching to hear you deliver that, because we also know we have the context and who we were in the studio with. That's another part of this record. We made this album with people who know us quite well, especially you.
Yeah, definitely.
But I remember that moment of Carry On, and it was the moment arrived for you to sing that vocal, and I just felt this weight on the studio, and I just watched your shoulders just kind of hunch up, and everyone just took that moment of silence and went, he's going in. And so what you hear is fucking honest. There's nothing put on about that. And I was there. It was really, really sacred. And also, like, you didn't want to stay there very long. Just wanted to get you in the studio, sing that song, and then get you out. Like, just almost like, it was quite painful for everyone to feel that you. But very, very privileged to bear witness to that in the studio way. To see someone be able to be honest like that.
And people can find out what the song is about by listening to it. It is track 4. And when we move into track 5, Prairie Song, which sounds like a rollicking good time and leads into another rollicking good time, which is Love You Like I Can, except Prairie Song contains the line, we are born in hard times. And for me, that was sort of the key of it, at least the story of what was going on. So I'm interested in the genesis of that song.
Well, we are, aren't we, Karen? We are. I mean, here we are forging ahead with this project at what one might argue is the hardest time to be a musician. I mean, you know, she's singing about our current situation, being very honest.
Yeah. The genesis of that song is just really it, like realizing how hard this is and how that sort of we could very easily give up on one another. We could very easily just say it's too hard, and no one would bat an eyelid. Like no one's sitting around waiting for us like to quit or continue. And that's also another grief in itself when you're like, you're not that important. But I remember writing that after a conversation we had about something, and I was just really frustrated about a lot of things. And I don't know, I was inspired by watching a series, it's 1883 or 1884, anyway, and inspired by my own stories of home in New Zealand and of the pioneers that came before us and the sheer like determination shown in human history. And I felt that we fit into that. And there's a line in that song like, diamonds are dreams and nobody knows the reason. Like it's just some old thing that keeps traveling on. And it was like that message to Matt was like, I don't need diamonds and I don't need money. Like it's not, someone just made that up and put a value on it. Someone just that's, I don't want that. I just want the fire at the end of the night. You know, I'm reaching on your hand to hold, that kind of like camaraderie where you're like, okay, at the end of every night, we're going to sit around the campfire, wait for that fire to warm, and, you know, and just acknowledge that we're born in hard times. And there's a lot of guts in that and a lot of grit. And it was written a little slower, kind of a bit more Gillian Welch on the banjo. It was a little bit more ballady, but
that was the hardest song to produce on record.
It was fun. It was fun. Yeah, but it is a hard song, but it's sung in a joyful way, because that's how you kind of get through hard times as well, is that you know, you hold it up to its opposite and encourage, you know, joy in the darkness and vice versa. So I love that. So I love writing that song. I love that song. I play real ragged bad banjo on it, and I love that too. And I love all the things through that. Like I love that that's the middle of the record. That's our story.
It was a real puzzle, that one. It was a real puzzle to solve. Because of the genesis of it. She mentioned
such a bad banjo.
Yeah, no, it wasn't your banjo playing.
Good boy.
It was
say nice things.
It was the genesis of it. Like she said, it started as a ballad, but like it started as a ballad, but she and we were like, she wanted it to fulfill a different role. So it's one thing to want to fulfill a different role. It's another thing to put it there. So her delivery and the pitch where it's at were a certain place, and the band were answering the call at another place, and I had to try bring the two together, which took a lot of thinking, and I did a couple retracks and edits, and it took a little bit of work.
Hard times, eh?
Yeah, surprisingly. I mean, this may bore people in terms of production, but yeah, it was just one of those trickier ones where I couldn't quite hear exactly how it was meant to go, and I had to trial and error a few things, and I think we got there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love hearing the little things that you added in that you have to hear back a few times. And I'm like, yep, on the violin from Zanny. And I'm like,
Yeah, the fiddle we had to,
So,
yeah, because she
yeah.
came in with like, she's a force, and she was like, right, you want some energy? I'll give you some energy. And so she's up here, and Kerryn's vocals sort of more here, it's cruising, which is fine. But then if all these people have all this energy here, then she's going to get lost. So I sort of had to dial her to here. My acoustic was up here. I had to retrack it sort of back here, more sort of chilled with her, and get the song to gel. So sometimes that's easy, and sometimes it takes a little bit of work.
And the production detail is not boring, Matt, because I'm very fond of saying that people love to hear about work.
Well, I know, and I know you.
So,
So at least the three of us
uh,
with no one else.
and Kerryn, you mentioned the antidote, and I think "Love You Like I Can," therefore the position of that track immediately after it makes total sense. It's like you go straight into that, and I won't spend too much time on it because I am conscious of the time, but it is always a rollicking great time listening to that song. It sounds like you were both so free and having fun in the studio when you recorded it. It's short. It doesn't need to be any longer. Everything's packed into that.
Yeah, 2 minutes 20. It's the high point of the record. It's packed full of energy, and I think, and yet not to take away from the song, there's still a lot of layers and depths and percussive rhythmic syncopation to the song. I'm always surprised when I listen back and go, "Wow, there's a lot going on in there for a 2 minute 20 song." Really proud of that one.
Yeah. Now, Black Sand was the first song that you wrote. And I remember when I interviewed you for Your Heart of Gold last year, you talked about the fact that when you started working together, you realized that you were separately working on songs called Black Sand. So this song, I'm very curious as to how this one song called Black Sand came together and whether it did combine the separate songs.
Matt sent me the verse idea, and as you mentioned, I'd been working on a song called Black Sand. When I say working on a song, I think working through grief through the element of Black Sand,
working on a concept,
on the concept of Black Sand. And there's a lot to unpack there that we don't really need to, but you know, we're both experiencing extreme loss, and we both gravitate towards that Black Sand as that place to go, to remember that person or that feeling or those things. So when you sent me through the verse and I exploded with "I'm running on the black sand," it was an urgent response to that verse. It was I could feel that. I jumped inside my skin and I started running on the black sand, and because I knew where you were, like, and I knew how it felt, and I knew what you were feeling and what you were seeing, and I just started running, and that's it. I was Forrest Gump. I just started running, and that was exactly. I remember just sending the voice memo back to you in such a minutes, and
it was amazing.
It was so quick.
I sent the verse to her, and she sent the pre-chorus back, "Running on the black sand," and
then you came over and we
song.
wrote it. We wrote the second verse, and you know, and then I said, I'm going to embody. That was the first time I sort of started talking about how I could embody spirit and how I would be the person or the thing gone in the waves, and I would be reaching out to you in this place. I'm responding to what you're saying. I'm going to play that character.
It's a sister song to Here I'll Be in that respect.
It definitely is. Yeah, Black Sand is as the initial loss and that grief. We're quite literally the sky and sea are pulled apart and then never to touch again, and that's a legend in New Zealand Māori culture as well. But yeah, so Here I'll Be is stitching it all back together and finding it, and you know,
it's funny.
Well, and also there's a line in Black Sand that, Matt, you sing it. I remember this land. I remember it shaping me. And then, of course, yes, we have the companion to that in Here I'll Be. So
that's right.
Just comment more than a question, really. And I will move it on to it. I could probably spend half an hour talking about Black Sand because I love it so much, but I will move it on to It Dawned on Me, which is not the last track on the album, but the last one for us to talk about because we've already spoken about the last two tracks. So what was the origin of that song?
Dave Dobbin wrote Dawned on Me. It features on his 1994 album Twist. It's one of Matt's, I'm going to say favorites, but you got lots of favorites.
No, it is one of my favorite records. I listened to it a lot growing up.
Mine too. There's great songs on there from Dave Dobbin that shaped our childhood, shaped our lives.
And New Zealand culture in general.
And New Zealand culture. And that song didn't really make a single, or it wasn't one of the well-known songs. And when you sent it to me, and we're like, you know, I don't even know if you mentioned we should sing it. We share songs a lot, and you know, make playlists, and you know, we're like, love this, and that was one that came through. And I remember just listening to it like over and over and over and over and over and over again, and crying and laughing and feeling, and just feeling so connected to our story and to each other and to our land and to our people. And then, we sang it for the first time on home soil.
And it's so fitting with the record. He sings about, I'll gather my driftwood and light a beacon. It's for you I cry. You know, it just, I don't want to claim that we could write a Dave Dobbin song, but if ever there was a song that it feels like we could have written it for the record, it's that one. It just fits perfectly lyrically, and hopefully we managed to bring our own element to the song sonically, and our own sound.
And we both really admire and respect Dave Dobbin well beyond what would be considered his smash singles of the 80s, you know, Slice of Heaven. And for us, Sir Dave Dobbin is a national treasure, and as a songwriter is underrated hugely outside of New Zealand. I mean, when you hear the writing on It Dawned on Me, you're like, is that the same guy that's singing Slice of Heaven? And that's a banger. But like when you reveal what Dave Dobbin has written about and how he's written, it's remarkable. And just to have the privilege to sing it in our way.
He's New Zealand's Paul Kelly.
He absolutely is. For sure. And we just wanted to, pay our respects to those that came before us.
Well, you will be heading to New Zealand for quite a few dates on this tour. You have 3 in Australia, in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane before then, and then you're gone. The East Coast, that's right. So, and hopefully some at another point, who knows? But mainly in New Zealand for this tour. And I will let you go because I've had you talking for such a long time. But do recommend everyone goes and listen to this album very closely, multiple times, and I'm sure you'll find as much richness in it as I have. Kerryn Fields, Matt, Joe Gow, such a privilege to speak to you about this wonderful album, and hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.